It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger, and today I'm talking to a guy with probably one of the coolest names I've ever encountered. Chuck Manley is going to be on the show today. If you don't know Chuck, you need to check him out. Among other things today, we're going to be talking about having fun as a writer. We're going to talk about reading the crappy books. We're also going to talk about editing a blank page. That's not a thing. That's just not a thing you can do. So, check out this interview with Chuck Manley. Stick around afterwards. We'll wrap things up. Thank you so much for being a part of the Wordslinger Podcast. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Today I am talking to, the name is Legend, actually. I keep, every time I turn around, some bozo out there that I'm interviewing is telling me, you need to talk to Chuck Manley. I mean, how can I not want to talk to you, dude, with a name like Chuck Manley? So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
I just want to say the name over and over again.
Yeah, my son actually has a little bit better. His name is Jacob, and we call him Jake. So he's Jake Manley, and
Manley.
I keep telling him he needs to be a private investigator when he grows up. Just like
no
Jake
kidding.
Manley, PI.
No kidding, man. That kid has to have a permanent fedora mounted to his
Exactly.
So, okay. All kidding aside, I mean, you are an independent author,
yes.
Me and many other people I talk to. So you're the author of the Paragons Trilogy. I did not mention that in the intro yet. Among other things, you got some other things going on, including a podcast.
Sure.
You just told me.
I do. I have the Story Shots podcast. It's 10 or 15 minutes long each episode, and it's basically just I take writing rules like show don't tell, things like that. I try to drill down and really give examples of how to do that, because back in the day when I was first getting into this, I'd ask, hey, how do you show don't tell? And I'd get all this fluffy, oh, you have to feel the nuances of the words kind of stuff, and I was like, that's just useless, man. You got to tell me what to do. I want nuts and bolts here. So it's kind of like that.
To be fair, I think you do have to feel the nuances of the words.
I agree, but you kind of have to know what words to use first.
Exactly. All right, so it's a real quick writing advice show.
It is, and I touch a little bit on just the writer's lifestyle stuff too, about work ethic and things like that. It's mostly for people who are just kind of getting into it and maybe don't have their craft where it needs to be.
Right.
Because when I first discovered indie publishing, the standing advice is go out, find the best books in your genre, read those books. But I don't think we mention enough that you should also find the crappiest books in your genre and read those too to figure out why they're crap.
All right.
And I did that. I've been doing that since before KDP, but and I read some of these not so good books. And I realized that they actually had really good ideas behind them. It's just the writer didn't have the nuts and bolts craft that they needed to get their idea across effectively. And I felt like, that's something I could help with. So, so the Story Shots was born. I did a couple of guest hosts on the Sterling and Stone guys' Smarter Artist podcast.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what got me into it. And then when that went away, I decided to try and slip my own thing kind of into that space.
Yeah, that's cool. I used to do their 8 questions. I used to host that.
Yeah, yes, I like that one too, and it also went away.
It also went away. Well, that's okay, man. I was doing too many podcasts as it was, honestly.
You are prodigious, because I mean, your voice is, I could hear it anywhere and know exactly who was talking. I've heard you a lot.
I'll take it as a compliment.
You should.
Warning, maybe.
Not at all. All
right. So, okay, you're. How long have you been doing this, man? How long have you been writing?
Oh, well, there's a story there too, of course. It's about 1975. Mm-hmm. I was 8 years old. Lived in Pasadena, Texas at the time, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
stomping grounds.
I wrote a short story for my class, I guess, fourth grade, I guess. And it was a Halloween story. And it was about me and my class going to a ghost town
Okay.
And everybody disappeared except for me, and I had to save the day. But my teacher read it, and she liked it so much, she read it to the class, and then she showed it to the other teacher in the same grade as me, and she read it to her class, and then they showed it to the principal, and he put it on the bulletin board outside the lunchroom doors, which for me at the time as an 8-year-old with we'll call it an excessively dramatic home life, that that made me feel like a rock star, and I've had the bug ever since.
Your first public publication.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I had a couple of experiences like that when I was in school. That really kind of set me on the road. So.
Exactly. And then I started writing, those marble covered black and white primers you used to get back in school.
Composition books. Yeah.
The composition books. Yeah. I would actually sit down and write Hardy Boys style mysteries with me and my best friend as the two characters in those. And it just, it's been snowballing ever since.
Yeah. It's cool, man. That's very cool. Yeah. I used to do that. I used to ape the Encyclopedia Brown stories.
Oh yeah, I love those. There was another one. Hitchcock actually had a 3 investigators line too that I always liked a lot. There was a bunch of those back then. They're harder to find now.
Yeah, it seems like stuff like that. It was a little more fun back then, I think.
Yeah, everybody wanted to be a detective, and now everybody wants to be a vampire or Harry Potter or something.
Yeah, let's go back to
which isn't bad, but I kind of miss the whole. It was a lot more innocent then. It was a lot more innocent then.
Yeah, now to sound old. If it's like a private investigator television series or something, it's got to be dark and brooding hero,
ultra realistic or something. I don't know what we're going for these days.
Who wants realism? Nobody wants realism.
Exactly. Reality is overrated. That's kind of why we do this, right?
That's the whole point. Yeah. That's what guys. So when did you actually start writing for money? I mean, just publishing.
I started I wrote my first novel. I finished it. Oh gosh, mid-90s, I guess. And I started. I'd been submitting short stories and things like that to the magazines back then, and I collected my enormous stack of rejection letters and all that stuff. I have a handwritten rejection letter from Marion Zimmer Bradley. That was the best one. Yeah, that was the best one I ever got. And she said she liked the story. It just didn't fit, blah, blah, blah. But around about, late 90s, I'd been doing the submission thing for, ever. I had one completed novel and a couple of other closet novels that were actually sitting in my closet right now still. But I just got fed up with the whole trad pub thing. I actually met a writer who was a friend of a friend. And he started telling me about the business side of actually being published and all that stuff. And it kind of depressed me when he started laying it out for me. He would tell me, I sold the rights to this. I optioned it to a studio, and they said they'd pay me this much. And by the time the publishers and everybody's agent and everything else, got through with it and an actual check got to him, he said he'd lost like 70% of his money.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I loved writing and telling stories. So I kind of just got frustrated with it, and I sort of refocused my efforts into more personal things. I could write for friends and family. I was real heavy into RPG gaming back then, tabletop gaming.
Right.
So for a long time, I just wrote scenarios for role-playing games that I would give to friends and give to other friends to play at their tables and stuff like that. And then in 2014, a buddy of mine that was actually a gaming buddy of mine, he told me about an anthology he thought I should submit to, a short story anthology. The story I submitted got rejected, but through that experience getting back into the publishing world, I discovered KDP and where we'd gone with the Kindle and all that stuff, and I haven't looked back since. I just put up my 6th book, and I'm 2 books into a space opera series, and I started the draft on the 3rd one yesterday. So
wow, that's cool.
It's just been a long road, but I really like where I am now. I just got to figure out all this business stuff because I'm not businessy. I don't business well.
Yeah, well,
I'm better than I was 2 years ago, and not as good as I'll be next year, but it's still very difficult for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. You how many books do you have out right now?
The short story collection I just posted would be number 6, and then my first 3 is a completed trilogy. I have a box set of that, so technically I have 7.
Okay. And how do you think of yourself? Are you a sci-fi author? Or are you what are you?
I like to think of myself as a speculative fiction writer.
Okay.
Speculative fiction is sort of
that
the
old
umbrella.
Jim.
Yeah, that little umbrella catch-all for anything fantastic in a book. I can pretty much write it. I've got ideas for thrillers that have like weird science type things, like the Joe Ledger series from Marbury, and I've got more ideas, and I've got lifetime to write them. So
The curse of the author.
Yeah, and and everything I do, I do have some straight up regular type thrillers in mind, but most everything I do tends to veer off into the weird at some point to some degree.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because that's just fun.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you're not going to have any fun with it, then why do it?
Fun is rule 1. Absolutely. Yeah. Always.
So what's your routine right now? What do you,
well, I am fortunate enough that I had a very career-minded wife that I fooled into marrying me.
Okay.
About 20 years ago. So she makes a good enough living that I can stay home and take care of the kids. So pretty much I get up at 5:30 every morning. I get the wife and kids off to work and school. I'm at my desk by about 9ish, and I write the first part. And then after that, like right now I'm struggling with the Amazon marketing ads.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just do the businessy stuff later in the afternoons. Like tomorrow afternoon, I'm supposed to go to a local radio station and read some flash fiction pieces that I've got for the college radio, stuff like that. And then pick my kids up, or my kids come home on the bus in the afternoon, and I'm dad after that.
Yeah.
It's not a bad gig, man.
No, that's the way you want to do it. I mean, yeah. Well, it's good you have kind of the buffer there, but are you, how are things going? You don't have to give me numbers or anything here, but I mean, how are things going with book sales?
Oh, I'll be happy to give you numbers because they're not that impressive. They actually, this year has been pretty good. It's been my best year so far. I haven't done well up to now, mainly because I was, still getting my feet wet and learning about marketing and stuff. But this is the first year that I will actually have a 4-figure year.
Yeah.
Which, I figure 2.5 years in, that's probably average, I would guess. I don't know.
That's probably pretty average.
But they've recently made some changes to the KU stuff, and right now I'm seeing a dip because I think things are drying up a little bit on that respect. And but I mean, like I said, it's better than it was 2 years ago, and hopefully not as good as it'll be next year.
Exactly.
So this is a marathon, not a sprint. So
are you exclusive? You're in KU?
I'm exclusive at the moment. I actually have, now that I've got a little bit of a backlist, I want to dip my toe into the wider pool. Yeah. So the first book in my Space Opera series is coming out next month, and I'm actually I think that's how we connected. Actually, I'm going to go with Drafted Digital to try and get myself out there in the world, because I figure they can help me with all the stuff that I have trouble with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, you still got to do your marketing and that.
Yeah, but I mean, they can like get it formatted and distribute it and do all that, and
that's all that. Yeah,
the biggest thing is the time. If I didn't have to sleep, I could probably do all of this stuff and learn all of this stuff myself. But at some point, I have to step away from the keyboard. And according to my wife, I don't do it nearly enough already. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I get a little bit of that myself, between the books and Drafted Digital work, I kind of spend probably a little more time than I should.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're planning to go wide. That's cool. I mean, you got a strategy for how you're going to do that yet? Or is it just, you're going to do promotions of any kind, or? I
will, but I'm kind of hoping I can talk to the folks at Drafted Digital, and they can sort of give me some guidance into how to approach that. Cause when you're all in with Amazon, really AMS is the way to go. Cause you've got that base that's already there to buy something.
Right.
So I was going to kind of ask around and get some advice before I actually, put anything out there and But there will be some promotion. I'm just going to have to figure out the best way to approach it as I get closer to the time.
I will tell you, so everybody's falling back on Facebook ads, and I think you can still milk that a little. I had a conversation with an author a few days ago. She's not on the show. I didn't interview her for the show, although I probably should. She's got about 70 books out. Here's what I know, dude. I used to go around like, yeah, I got like 40 books out, and revel in the praise. And now I'm like, I'm minor. But she's got about 70 books out. And what she told me was she runs Amazon ads exclusively, even though she's wide, and she still sees an uptick every time she has an ad.
That is the only one I'm running right now. I've done Facebook. I've done all the like Book Gorilla and Free Booksy. I've done all those list things, and I've never had a book bub. But now,
I just got my first book bub.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Congratulations! I think that's like throw a party kind of congratulations.
It is. I've kept it kind of so hard to do.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting because she was saying she's wide. She sees an uptick on her other channels. So I don't know how that's translating. I have a theory it might be tied in because, Amazon is a search engine. So it might be tied in with, somehow. I asked her if she had Google Analytics, check and see where her traffic's coming from. And
that's a good point.
So
I will definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Let me know if you start experimenting. It's harder for me to, I'm going to start running more of those ads. All right, did you do like Brian Meeks's course?
Actually, that's what got me into it was your interview with him.
Okay.
And I bought the book, and I've been reading it, and so far I've read enough of it that I've reworked the product descriptions on both my series starters.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking at the covers now to see if I need to tweak those too. But that's a very useful book. But still, as well as he explains it, the numbers, once I see those numbers, it's my brain gets a little dizzy.
No,
and I start thinking whiskey tastes good. That's
exactly. You and I are on the same page all over. So I'm looking at your covers, and I think your cover's pretty good. I don't think there's
thank you.
anything special that you need to do. They're consistent, they look like.
Yeah, I tried to keep them branded.
Yeah. That's good. That was a mistake I made early on. Was I did not try to keep my work branded, and I didn't even think about it. Even though I was a marketing guy at the time, I didn't think about it.
Oh, well, you should have seen my first book description. It was like a chapter out of the book. It was just this huge long block of text.
Yeah,
I thought I had to use every single character.
Right.
Yeah, because my work history is in healthcare and electronics. I've never done anything business related in my life.
Right.
So this is all new territory to me.
Healthcare, man. Just think of it like healthcare. I'm sure there's an analogy there.
Well, I worked in surgery, so my patients were all asleep with tubes down their throats.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of communication going on.
Your book copy is the patient. They have an excess of something.
Yes.
Cut it down.
But yeah, I have cut the last one. The one I posted yesterday is cut substantially. Yeah. I've decided now I'm going to try and just keep them under 150 words if I can. Just keep them nice.
That's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
There's a whole formula not formula. I hate telling people that. I don't do this for just anyone these days. I only do this on referral and I'm very expensive for anyone. But I write book descriptions for some pretty well-known authors out there.
Yeah.
And I have a kind of formula of sorts. I need to probably boil it down. I got links to how to write a good book description on Drafted Digital.
I will keep that. Yeah, I'll definitely read that for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that down in the show notes. Description. Okay, so not to veer off too much, but so you're pretty much a one-man shop right now. You're handling your covers. Or do you design your covers, or you?
I designed the first one. I did that one myself with a little help from a buddy of mine here in town. The rest of them are either he helped me, he did them for me, or I used 99 Designs.
Okay.
And there is one, the cover from the first Brace Cordova book. That's actually a pre-made. I got off of it for like $40. I got off one of the pre-made sites, and then I'm branding off of that one for the rest of them through 99 Designs.
Okay. That's the Cordova Vector.
That is correct. Yeah, the Cordova Vector.
Which is quite a cool cover. And I do see I see some elements in the books that follow. So
yeah, there's only the one after that. So but I'm going to try and keep the font the same and, stuff like that down the road. There'll be 5 books in that series. So
yeah. No, I think it's a good job. It's very definitely sci-fi. It's got a great look to it. So good work. I'm looking at Walking Worlds, and the very first thing that comes up in my brain is Walking Dead.
Well, yeah, I can see that for sure.
But it does have that look, by the way. Like it has that, not the bleakness of it, but it kind of looks like it might tie in. So you have at least one zombie story in that book.
There's a epic fantasy story in that book that has some zombie like bad guys in it. So
okay, there you go.
We'll count that. We'll count that.
Good. Yeah. So you're all right. You worked in the medical field. You were a surgeon.
No, I was not a surgeon. I was a cardiovascular technologist. Before that, I worked in mental health care.
Okay.
So yeah, basically I operated life support equipment in cardiac and trauma surgery.
I see. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. That's interesting. I have this has nothing to do with you. I have a pacemaker.
Oh, well, my wife is actually a pacemaker specialist.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah. Pacemakers and internal defibrillators and stuff like that.
I need to ask, and we need to ask her, like, why are they not? Is anyone going to ever make a pacemaker that can be charged by induction instead of me having to go under the knife every 10 years?
That's something that they're working on. They're trying to get it to where they're trying to make them as non-invasive as possible, where basically once they're in, you slip it in the pocket, you stitch them up, and they're fire and forget. You don't ever have to go back in.
That's what I want. I'm not looking forward to having to go back.
No, it's a pain. It's a huge pain.
We're so off trail. So
don't worry about it, man.
You're writing primarily sci-fi. You're speculative fiction. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you that one.
Well, like the Cordova books are very much space opera, 100%. It's Firefly with aliens, basically.
Oh, okay.
That's the tagline. The first book, though, the first one I did in KDP, I made the mistake of it doesn't fit real well into one genre.
Okay.
It's I like to call it my science fiction thriller with superhero icing and horror sprinkles.
Okay.
It's a big cupcake. My science, yeah. And so it's got a little bit of everything in there, but it also fit, it fits in Amazon under the superhero and contemporary fantasy categories.
Right.
So I got some in the fantasy set. I got some in the science fiction set. So I just put that speculative fiction umbrella over all of it. And I get bored writing in one genre.
Right.
That's actually where the Walking Worlds story collection came out. Because between books, I'm sick of sci-fi. I'm going to sit down and write an epic fantasy short story to sort of cleanse the mental palate before I go back to the next book on that series, So then I just collected all those into a book, and I thought, well, let's just, really that's an experiment. Because I went and looked at short story collections, and they're all centered around a theme.
Right.
And I was kind of like, well, a lot of people who read sci-fi also read fantasy. There's a lot of crossover. So I thought, the hell with it. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to see if people like the variety. They can kind of pick and choose and just kind of see how it does. So.
Right. That's a familiar sounding story.
Oh.
I kind of like that around. All right. So you're you said you got another book in the works right now.
Yeah, it'll be the third book in the Brace Cordova series. It's called The Cordova Pursuit.
All right. So when you are you write every single day, I take it?
Pretty much. So I'll take the weekends off sometimes, but depends on what's going on with the family when they're home.
Like a word count you're aiming for, or how do you?
I have a hard time sleeping if I don't hit 1,000 words a day.
Okay.
If I hit more than 2,000, that's a really good day. So that's kind of that's a good pace for me.
That's, and I tell people, man, we come across a lot of folks who are pretty obsessed with they want to do like 5 or 10,000 words a day, and how to do 5,000 words an hour. Like I want to strangle Chris Fox.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Chris, I'm mostly...
You know, I respect that. I respect the ability to do that. I just, my books end up being like I think they average about 90,000 words each.
Yeah.
And so they're longer books, which I don't know. I kind of have that slow and steady wins the race attitude, so, and I'm not saying, I actually believe a lot of times that writing fast is you actually can get some better writing doing it quick than when you're taking too much time to think about it.
Right.
Because I know that when I'm really into it and I get in that zone, I put out good stuff and the copy is pretty clean. Granted, I've been doing this for 40 years, but still, I think that once you hit that certain mental groove that you just, the words just come. And I think guys like Chris, they know how to get into that groove and stay there.
Right. Yeah.
And that's my problem is I get distracted.
And I want to be clear. I didn't mean to sound like I was criticizing 1,000 words a day. I was going to.
Oh, no. I know you weren't. No, I'm just saying I wish I could do that.
Yeah,
that's,
And that's the thing. I think if people can commit to any number, even if it's 500 words a day.
Yeah, I agree.
You're going to have good output throughout the course of a year. So
yeah, everybody's life is different too. I do that many words a day because I'm fortunate enough to be in the situation I'm in. But I've talked to people who are single parents and have full-time jobs, and they're lucky to get 250, 300 words in a day.
Right.
But I tell them, well, just keep doing that. At the end of 365 days, you got a novel.
That's right.
So
that's right. It's like it's my loose change theory, man. Because everywhere I go,
that's a good one.
I pick up. Anytime I see a penny or a nickel or whatever, I pick it up. And maybe some days I only see a penny, but at the end of a month, I might have picked up $20 and change just because some days are better than others, and as long as there's that forward progress.
Exactly. It's all about forward momentum. That's the catchphrase. And you know what? The backspace key is your enemy. It really is.
Right. You want to elaborate on that? Tell me what you mean.
Well, because I'm better about it, but I remember a long time ago when I first discovered word processors. Because I started out writing pen and paper, then I went to typewriters, then word processors came along, and I started using those, and I realized, wait, I just misspelled that word. Holy crap, I can just go dap, dap, dap and fix it. So for years I did that. And then when I started doing this professionally, I guess I can say that now. Yeah, I can say that now.
Yeah. You making money at it?
I am making money at it. So there you go.
You're doing it professionally.
I realized that I was kind of editing and at the same time. And I realized how much time I wasted going backwards when I should be going forwards and just correcting it, in the editing phase down the road.
Right.
And so I wish there was some way I could just turn off the backspace key while I'm working. Because even now I've tried to discipline myself about it, and I still, if I catch something, it'll be like a little doubt ferret just niggering at my brain, and it just and I'll have to go back and fix it. So and that slows you down, because then you have to get back on track to where you were when you started backspacing.
Right. Yeah.
So I imagine a lot of people do that.
That's exactly right. That's one of my pieces of advice for authors is just do not edit as you go. Don't edit as you write. It doesn't just slow you down by half, by the way. It's exponentially.
It is. It is.
You end up just kind of ruining your flow, and half the time you won't get the book done. I have a good friend of mine. I used to tell people he's been working on the same book for 10 years, but he informed me he's actually been working on it for 20 years.
Wow.
So, but it's letter perfect to the point he's written to. For all the good that does anybody. So you're giving little bits of wisdom in your new podcast. What you got something what would be a tidbit, a pearl of wisdom you could share with the writing audience?
Oh gosh, there's
your best piece. Let's dig out your gem.
The best piece of advice I would give somebody who's been at it a while or just getting started, or
let's start with just starting. What would you tell the will-be author?
You're gonna suck.
All right.
It's just I love you, but that's the way it's gonna go. You have to give yourself permission to be bad and finish what you start, even though it's bad.
Yeah.
You cannot edit a blank page.
Right.
The Mythbusters proved you can polish a turd. So if you can do that, you can go back and fix whatever was bad in your manuscript, but don't get hung up on it not being, your writing idol's work right out of the gate, because it'll never be that.
Right.
So, allow yourself to be bad and finish what you start. That's what I would say to people who are just wanting to write their first novel or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, you got now. Okay, so you might have advice for the advanced novelist. You want to?
Well,
same advice.
Maybe, because the thing about it is, let's say, like, you've obviously been doing it a while. I've been doing it a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to depend. You might need a separate piece of advice than I would need. I would need to read one of your books to see,
right.
Okay, you're a little shaky here, and I would give you advice on that. And you could read one of mine and do the same thing, I'm sure. I know I'm bad about repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll use the same word in a paragraph kind of thing.
Right.
And, it's just the way my brain's wired. So, people who've been at it a while, it's going to be different depending on that writer's style. Now, the one thing I will say to anybody who's been at it a while and is discovering self-publishing for the first time is you have to come to a point where your book becomes your product.
Yeah.
You have to put on that business hat, and that's hard for a lot of people. There's a pretty active literary community here in Huntsville, my town here, and that's something I have to tell a lot of those guys. Most of them are younger, so they've still got that, this is my precious baby, and it should never be, it should be gilded and worshipped and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And I'm like, no, what you have there, if you're interested in selling it, is a product that you better make sure the public is going to want to read.
Exactly.
And you have to get mercenary about it.
Right.
So that would be, I think, that advice that I would give.
Perfect. All right. Well, and people who want to get more of that advice, where can they find your podcast?
It's called the Story Shots Podcast. It's available on iTunes and Stitcher, also at Libsyn, which hosts it. New episodes come out every Friday, except last Friday, because I'm a doofus and I messed up and it didn't come out till today. So whoever's listening gets 2 this week.
All right.
And yeah, that's where that's available. And then you can also find out more about it at www.C.StevenManley.net, which is my website, and it has links to all my books and my podcast.
Excellent. Well, we'll check it out, man. All right. So we're going to wrap things up. Everybody listening, I appreciate you hanging out, and I'm glad you got to tune in for this particular interview because, again, I keep hearing this guy's name everywhere I go. On all those shows where you hear my voice, those guys after the fact, they're like, Chuck Manley, man. That's all. That's all they say.
My wife got a real kick out of it. When you sent me the email, she read it, and she got a real kick out of that "your name is legend" thing. And she's like, yeah, in your head, man.
We all have to be our own legends, man.
That's
all
true.
Right. So, okay, everybody, you hang out. You're probably hearing the groovy bridge music right now. You may dance in place at will, and I will fill you in with a little bit of housekeeping right after this. Thanks a lot for being on the show, man.
You bet. I appreciate you having me, Kevin.
Hey, you stuck around. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chuck Manley. He's a great author and has an incredible name, frankly. Now we're at the sponsor portion of the show. We are sponsored in part by Draft2Digital. You can convert, publish, and distribute your books online worldwide and get support the whole way at draft2digital.com/wordslinger. You can also check out KDP Rocket. Take control, get more readers, increase your Kindle rankings. Go to bit.ly/KDPslinger. And of course, you can support this show on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Kevin Tumlinson, there you'll be able to chip in. Every dime that you give me goes to the overhead of the show. So thank you for your support. It helps a great deal. It helps me continue to produce episodes. So if you like what you're seeing, if you like what you're hearing in the audio podcast, hop on over. You can also support this show by buying my books. You may know by now, I'm a best-selling and award-winning thriller author, and you in part got me there. So thank you if you're a reader. If you're not a reader, go check out my stuff. Go to kevintumlinson.com/books. You can pick up a variety of books there. Over 40 books in print right now. You can pick up the latest Dan Kotler thrillers. You can also pick up some of my science fiction and YA fiction. So I hope you do. I hope you enjoy. If you do, leave me a review on Amazon and on Goodreads. Those things help quite a bit, and I do appreciate it. That's it for the Wordslinger Podcast this week. Tune in next time. We're going to have another great interview for you. Really looking forward to it. And as always, God bless. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you next time.